I think part of it is finding the right tone between the fiscal issues and the social issues. It's finding the right message and how to message that between the fiscal issues and the social issues. I think we've learned a lot, and we're going to learn a lot over the next few days and months about what happened here. And so I'm optimistic about the Connecticut Republican Party. I'm optimistic about the Republican Party across the country and the message that we have. But I do want to say this shows that the Secretary of State's office is broken. No one is denying that George lost this election. But the Secretary of State's website right now, this moment, says the difference was 777 votes. The registrars in Salisbury are telling us they still can't enter the information into that system because of software issues. How is it that the state of Florida can count over 7 million votes in a few hours and declare a winner, and the state of Connecticut, with about 1 million or so votes, is still 2 days out, and we still don't have vote totals across? The Secretary's office is broken, its election system is broken, and the legislature needs to step in and fix this. And I'm hoping our new Secretary of State, Stephanie Thomas, is going to make that a priority, because there's simply no reason to show vote totals. For instance, I believe Mary Fay is here. In Sherman, their system shows she has 0 votes when everybody else has votes. Their system shows that Bob Stefanowski has 158 votes when every other candidate, Democrat or Republican, is in the multiple hundreds. That's a broken system. We know he got more than 158 votes. We know Mary Fay got more than 0 votes in that town. So it's important for people to have confidence in our elections that our Secretary's office can accurately and quickly report the results. And part of what we're going to be doing going forward is working with that. I hope to be able to work with the legislature and my counterpart, Nancy DiNardo, to try to bring some improvements to our election system, our reporting system, because at the end of the day, when we have situations like this where we have George having more votes on election night and then having less votes and then less votes and then he picked up votes, that it erodes the confidence in our Secretary's office and our ability to report those results. So at the end of the day, I think the lesson we take from here today is the Secretary's office, their elections division is broken. It needs to be fixed. People need to have confidence in the numbers that are reported. Again, George lost. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. But we should have known that much sooner, and the results should be more accurate. Anyone who goes on the Secretary's site today, right now, will show that he lost by 777 votes. We have people calling, how is this not a recount? This is what the Secretary is reporting to us. And so, well, no, there's other votes. And what do you mean there's other votes? Why are there other votes? And we know there's other votes. We know what the actual number is. It is what the Secretary has told us. It is what the Secretary has told George's campaign and Congresswoman Hayes' campaign. But the general public does not know that. So the Secretary's office needs to be involved in fixing this. The legislature needs to step in and fix this. We need a better reporting system. We need a better election management system in this state.
What happened? We were in this RNC Community Center, and we heard a lot of talk about a red wave. Doesn't seem to have been one. The Democrats still control the top of state government. Majorities in the legislature. The congressional delegation remains all Democratic. What happened?
I think there was a few things that happened. I think there's still some issues for people that are in regards to the governor's handling of COVID. And I think they were more supportive of that than I think a lot of people realize, including I think the Democrats realized how supportive they were of that. I think, again, getting back to the messaging between the fiscal issues and the social issues. And, you know, look, there were, at the end of the day, people making up statements on both sides about people's positions on various issues. And unfortunately, when we live in a world where we get our news every 5 seconds, and if you're not engaged within 7 seconds of getting it, you move on to the next thing, and all you see is a headline or a clickbait issue. And that's, I think, the biggest issue that I think we have to look at is our ability to communicate with voters in a digital world. The Democrats do it better than we do. Flat out, they do it better than we do, communicate digitally. And you all live in a digital world. And so we have to get better at communicating in that world. We have to get better at talking to voters in that world. And we have to be better at refining the message in a digital environment, in a technological environment than we are right now.
What do you think the election in the 5th district turned on?
Truthfully, I think what it turned on was less than. I think it turned on the top of the ticket. If we look at 2018, Bob won the 5th district in 2018. He didn't win it this time. Leora did not do as well as we thought she was going to do in the 5th district. I am a big believer in ballot dynamic. I am a big believer in whether we were using the old machines or we're doing this, there is a dynamic to the ballot and how the ballot works and how people view that ballot. So I think some of it had to do with less of a performance in 2022 than we had in 2018 in the 5th district.
So more of a straight ballot, people voting on a party line kind of thing.
I think so. So once you kind of start on a line, you go one or two, you kind of, I think people continue, although we are known as a ticket splitting state. We've always been a ticket splitting state, and I think we saw less ticket splitting in 2022 than we have seen in the past.
Do you think despite the loss now with a candidate like George getting so close in this race, this will change the way the state Republican Party looks at the types of candidates they're endorsing and putting up for races going forward?
First of all, I think George was an outstanding candidate, and he was a great candidate, and I'm hoping George is going to stay involved. Those are the types of candidates that we need across the state. And look, George was a high quality. First of all, I think you all spent enough time with George. He's just a really nice man. He's a fun guy. He's a very personable person. He's a very likable person. And that's tremendously important. I'm a big believer at the end of the day that campaigns are about candidates. They're not about a message. They're not about parties. They're about a candidate. If you have a really good candidate, you can do well. If you don't have a really good candidate, you have less likely to do as well. And George was a great candidate. We do have a situation in Connecticut, obviously, where we have a primary process. And so the party, whether it's a local party endorsing for state rep or state senate, or the state party endorsing for statewide office, can endorse. We do have a process where other people may qualify to come in for a primary, and at the end of the day, the voters of the party are going to make the decision as to who the candidate's going to be. And so I think, again, you get into ideology. We see it on both sides, where we saw candidates on the Democratic side in primaries who either were not liberal enough or they were too liberal. We had candidates who were either not conservative enough or too conservative that people looked at. So at the end of the day, voters are the ones within the party who are making the decisions in a lot of these races.
To what extent do you think the election could have gone differently if not for the Supreme Court's abortion decision over the summer? Did that ripple in Connecticut, do you think?
Well, I think it did. I think the Democrats spent a lot of time talking about abortion for a very good reason. If they talked about their economic record, they were in trouble. I was asked yesterday about Ned Lamont saying the Democrats had a mandate for their agenda. My response is, well, when you tell me what their agenda is, I'll tell you whether or not they have a mandate for it, because they never told us what it is they're going to do. They never talked about how they're going to solve the economic problem. Ned Lamont never talked about what he's going to do when he doesn't get $4 billion from the federal government next year when we do our next year's budget. So they never told us the agenda, so I don't believe you have a mandate for anything if you don't know what that is.
Obviously, crime was a big focus on the Republican side. Coming out of the election, would you say that was a successful message or not a successful message?
I think we saw it to be relatively successful in some places. Connecticut is unique in a lot of ways. First and foremost, we have towns, not counties. And a county system has a very different political feel to it, and campaigns are run very differently within a county system than they are within a town system. So depending where you were in the state, it was an issue, and it was an issue that played, and depending where you were, if you were someplace else, it wasn't as prominent as an issue. So again, I think it's how we look at the state geographically from a political perspective, and that a one-size message does not fit all within the state of Connecticut.
It's early, but are you urging George to run again?
I think it's early, so I think George has to catch his breath. I think you heard today that he's going to remain involved. He's going to continue to advocate for the positions that he believes in. He's going to continue to advocate for the people of this district and the state of Connecticut, as he's done for many years. And we'll see what George is going to do. I think right now everyone needs to take a breath, maybe take a long weekend someplace. Spa sounds really good right about now. And then come back and, kind of regroup and refocus and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem, guys. Thanks.